Secondhand Lions, a novelization by John Whitman based on the screenplay by Tim McCanlies. Narrated here by Foster Reading. Timestamp separating the narration and the optional connection questions is in the description. Thank you for listening. Chapter 6. Walter woke to the gentle sound of lapping water. He blinked and found himself looking up at a gray morning sky. The sun was just rising in the east. He sat up. A low, pale mist clung to the surface of the lake, thinning as it retreated from the sunlight. He was lying where he had sat the night before. The dog pack had surrounded him, pressing their bodies against him and one another for warmth. The pig was there too, its fat, spotted body taking up twice the space of any dog. As Walter sat up, the big black dog sat up. It stared at him, cocking its head to one side quizzically. Walter yawned. "Yeah, well, you don't look so good first thing in the morning either." The black dog yawned too, showing rows of yellow broken teeth. It jabbed its muzzle under Walter's elbow and lifted, popping his arm up onto its neck. Okay, Walter laughed. "I get the idea." He started scratching and the dog settled down. Walter was now part of the pack. "Can't believe I fell asleep on the ground," Walter said, stretching his stiff muscles. "Where's Hub? Did I dream all that?" The dog didn't answer, of course. Somewhere near the house, a rooster crowed at the rising sun. Suddenly, Walter panicked. If the two men got up early, they'd realize he had been out all night. And if that was against some sort of rule, he might end up as bullet-ridden as a catfish, or hanging on the back porch for a month like a deer, or who knew what else. He jumped to his feet and sprinted toward the house. The dogs grunted and the pig squealed, but they jumped up and followed. Walter reached the kitchen door and slowed down, peeking inside. Garth was already awake. He was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through an enormous stack of mail. This was such a simple, normal activity that Walter froze for a moment. He realized he had not yet stopped to get a good look at the old men. So far, he had only seen them stare down the barrels of their shotguns, throw back big gulps of whiskey, and tear into heaps of meat and sausage. Now, he paused to study Garth. Garth's hair was blonde, turning to gray. His face was strong, like Hub's, but softer, and he smiled as easily as he frowned. Still, even if he wasn't as insane as his brother, he was a madman, and Walter did not want to get caught. As if on cue, Garth stood up and walked out of the kitchen. Walter opened the screen door slowly, hoping it wouldn't squeak. It didn't. He slipped inside the warm kitchen and headed for the stairs, but stopped short. The pile of mail had caught his eye. It was huge atop the table. It reached almost to his eyebrows. He paused and pulled an envelope off the top. It was a coupon ripped from a magazine. Garth had filled out the information request form, and he had checked off the box that said, "Yes, please have a salesman call." Underneath, he had scribbled, "After 6 p.m. only." Walter gasped. He picked up the next one. It said the same. In fact, all of them, in one way or another, said the same thing. "Please send a salesman after 6 o'clock. "Thought you'd run away." Walter jumped out of his skin. Garth was standing in the doorway, frowning. He waited patiently as Walter recovered himself and managed to shake his head. Then Garth just grunted and strode in and gathered up the pile of mail. He shoved it all into a drawer. When it was hidden away, he went to the refrigerator and pulled out a big bowl full of eggs and several links of sausage. He took a huge flat griddle from underneath the counter and laid it across the stove. Then he slapped a hunk of lard on top of it and lit the fire. As the lard heated, it began to melt and slip across the surface of the griddle. Meanwhile, Garth took out another bowl and began cracking eggs, one after another, into it, then tossing the shells into the sink. He did this with egg after egg, crack, pour, toss, crack, pour, toss. Walter stopped counting after 20. Garth saw him staring. All he said was, "We eat eggs scrambled here." Walter nodded. Finally, he said, You send mail to all those salesmen? You asked them to come here so you could shoot at them?" Garth sighed, then nodded. "Don't tell Hub. It'd take all the fun out. Ruin it for him." "But why?" Garth shrugged. "Every man needs a hobby." Walter thought about this, but of course it made about as much sense as a pig in a dog pack or trunks full of sand. He was beginning to believe these old men really were crazy. The lard had spread. Garth grabbed an oven mitt and used it to lift the metal sheet, tilting it this way and that to spread the grease. Then he took the huge lengths of sausage and dropped them onto the griddle. He picked up a fork and stirred the eggs into a swirling yellow whirlpool in their bowl. He poured the eggs onto the griddle until they formed a giant yellow lake, bubbling and quivering from the heat. With the spatula, he scrambled them. Hub trudged into the room, yawning. He didn't say a word as he rubbed his shoulders and sat down. Garth motioned for Walter to sit too, as he served them each a steaming pile of eggs and sausage. Hub yawned. "Brand new mattress, and I'm still waking up tired and sore." No wonder, Walter thought, remembering Hub's imaginary midnight battle. Garth caught him staring and gave him a curious, knowing look. "Dig in," he said. Walter took a small bite of sausage. It wasn't too bad. He took another bite, then felt eyes staring at his back. He looked over his shoulder towards the kitchen screen door. The pig was there, glaring at him as before, but now the pig had been joined by a rooster. Their beady eyes burned into him as he poked at his eggs. "Nothing in this place is easy," he thought. He turned back towards the table and his two uncles. They were as silent as they had been the night before, gobbling down huge scoops of eggs and sausage without exchanging a word. A dozen questions ran through Walter's mind. He decided not to ask about Hub's midnight walk. He also decided not to ask why they wanted to murder salesmen. He thought of all the things he had heard about them and settled on the most interesting and safest question he could think of. "So, you two disappeared for 40 whole years?" he asked. "Where were you?" The two brothers glanced at each other. Neither of them stopped chewing. "Africa mostly," Garth answered at last. "Africa?" Walter blurted out. "Where in Africa?" he asked skeptically. Garth hesitated. "North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Kenya, the Sudan." "But that was long ago," Hub interrupted. "We're old and worthless now." He and Garth both returned to eating, and silence ruled over the table for a moment. But Walter wasn't willing to give up that easily. "Still, I bet you two sure have a lot of good stories to tell, huh?" Garth started to answer, but Hub snorted. "Stories. Ain't nothing sadder than a couple of has-beens jabbering about the good old days. Those days are through, and so are we." That seemed to put a lid on the conversation. Garth nodded and muttered, "I don't know how a fellow can concentrate on eating with all this talk. But when Walter looked at him, there was a twinkle in the old man's eye. He could have sworn Garth even winked at him. End of Chapter 6. Thank you for reading with me today. If your teacher would like to listen to my connection questions for you to answer, continue listening. Otherwise, you can click on the next video on my Secondhand Lions playlist to continue reading on to the next chapter. Either way, thank you for listening to Secondhand Lions by John Whitman, narrated by me, Foster_reading. Chapter 6 End Questions. Number 1. Short answer. Reread the first page of Chapter 1. How does the dog pack treat Walter now compared to when he first arrived at the farm? Use evidence from both chapters to support your answer. Optional challenge. What might this change symbolize about Walter's adjustment to life at the farm? Number 2. Multiple choice. Walter worries he will get in trouble for staying outside all night. Instead, Garth simply says, "I thought you'd run away." Why did the author most likely use a period instead of a question mark? A. Garth is angrily accusing Walter of trying to run away. B. Garth is calmly sharing what he thought happened without judging Walter. C. The author made a punctuation mistake. Or D. Garth is asking a rhetorical question. Question 3. Multiple choice and explain. Why do you think Garth hides the salesman requests from Hub? A. Garth enjoys hurting salesmen. B. Garth wants Hub to get in trouble so he could keep their money. C. Garth cares about Hub and wants to give him something exciting to look forward to. D. Other. Explain your answer and your follow-up reasoning. Question number 4. When Hub says, "Those days are through and so are we," what does this reveal about his feelings? A. Hub feels discouraged about getting older and misses the excitement of his younger years. B. Hub is trying to stop Garth from revealing secrets about their past. C. Hub wants Walter to think they are harmless. Or D. Hub is simply tired and grumpy in the morning. Number 5. Final multiple choice question. At the end of the chapter, Garth says he wants to eat without all of Walter's questions. However, Walter notices something different about Garth's behavior. What is the contradiction? A. Garth is nervous about Walter's questions. B. Garth is angry about Walter's questions. C. Garth is sad about talking about the past. D. Garth pretends he wants silence, but he seems excited to share his stories with Walter later. End of questions. Thank you so much for reading with me today, and I hope you will continue reading Secondhand Lions by John Whitman, narrated by me, Foster Reading. Have a wonderful day.